Welcome to the Creative Community Podcast presented by Destination Arete. I'm David.
And I'm Mark, and we're building a community of creatives who work together to achieve creative excellence. Today's episode is our halfway episode. We are talking about the progress that we've made up until this point in the year, and we're going to have some fun games. We're going to recap some of our favorite episodes and things like that. So we're super excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a little different from our normal interview format. Normally, people who tune into the podcast for the last year and a half, we've been interviewing amazing artists, and we have more amazing artists lined up for the rest of 2021 and beyond, as our friend over my shoulder would say. And we will talk about all that. But Mark, let's start. Let's just start. You've got some episodes that you specifically enjoyed this year. We've done, I think, up to this point, we've done 13 or 14. We're over halfway. Last year, our goal was 20. We ended up with 22. So we're right at the halfway mark. So that's good. So tell me the first episode that you enjoyed. We've talked to some amazing artists this year, as I previously mentioned. So who's that first artist that really stuck out to you?
The first one is Lincoln Adams, and it was really difficult. We picked three each to highlight, and that was really difficult to go back and look over this library because I was looking over our feed and I was like, this is our podcast. Wow, these people are amazing. These are all people who I want to hear what they have to say. And I got to, so I was really happy about that. But one of those people was Lincoln Adams, who is my first pick. And Lincoln was a really, really great interview. He's someone who I got connected with through a friend that I used to work with. And it was super fun. Just at the beginning, I don't even think this is in the recording, but we talked about sports with him because he's a Cleveland fan. In the interview, if you watch it on YouTube, he's got his Cleveland gear on. And so it was super great to talk to him about the Cavs and about the Browns and just about sports in general. It was a quick, easy way for us to connect and really felt a kindred spirit there, as David and I are both sports fans. So that was really exciting. And then I really enjoyed two things. One was his personal story that he shared with us of his own journey.
Yeah.
Just super inspiring. Like to know what he overcame to be where he is now is really incredible. And so I highly recommend you go listen to that if you are just looking for something to motivate you. And that whole episode was really motivating to me because the second thing that I wanted to mention was he talked about that need to be hungry. And I think the quote that we picked for that episode was, if you are hungry, people will be more willing to help you. And he was talking about animation professionals, people who are in the industry. And it's true, I think, in any industry, the more hungry that you are, the more that you want it. And in Lincoln's case, he was literally hungry. Like he wanted it so bad, and he wasn't going to give up. And so those two things kind of combined, his own personal story and then how he weaved that into staying hungry, was kind of why I chose that episode as one of my favorites.
Yeah. Do you remember how long he said it's been since he first contacted? I think he said in the episode he's getting ready to work with a really big studio. He was like, it's one of two big studios. So
yeah.
And he said, and it's not the other one. Which makes a lot of sense. And he is a story artist, so he creates storyboards and animatics and that sort of things for animated projects. So do you remember how long it was, he said, though, that he's been working to get to that point?
Was it 10 years?
I think it was 10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was going into his 11th year of knowing this person and keeping in contact with them and showing them his work. And now they have recommended him for the job of story artist for this studio. So that's something that's really challenging me right now because I would like to be 10 years in the future. And it was really encouraging to hear him being faithful and diligent, teaching at the Cleveland Institute of Art, and then still pursuing that and still working on that. So that's something that encouraged me from Lincoln's conversation.
Absolutely. What was one of your favorites?
So I chose as my first one, Mike Malm from episode 113. He talked about figure painting. That was someone that the door was open to us by our contact, Keith Wang over at Sentient. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the episode. But Mike was so generous and so kind and so gracious. I mean, he gave you his phone number at the end of the interview. He was just like, here's my number. Or he took your number and texted you or something like that. And just as someone who is a professional, a consummate professional, already seeing that opportunity to invest in someone and not hesitating, I thought that was really an example and an encouragement to me by him just saying, I want to send you references that I've used to help me when I'm painting. And he'd already connected with you on the level that, which obviously you guys are both artists. So it's, it makes sense that you guys would connect in that way. But he is one of the rare exceptions in that, not that other artists that we've interviewed would not do this, but he just didn't even hesitate and was just like, let me send you some pictures, and now you have my number and you can text me whenever, and come by my studio if you're ever in the area. And just like was so generous. And then number two, the thing I liked about Mike was just how reverent he was about the art of painting the figure and how much he understood what the figure can communicate. And I think that's something, I don't know, maybe you can talk about this, Mark, but we grew up spoiled in the area of seeing figures because there was a Norman Rockwell book in the living room, and there was a John Singer Sargent book in the living room, and there were 3 Brian Jekylls on the wall. And so, and then that guy who did those graphite paint pictures.
Yeah. I can't think of his name right now, but
I'm gonna have to look it up and put it in the show notes or edit it in. You'll hear a little voiceover right here. Robert Doors. The figures in those illustrations and paintings and drawings were world class. And the same thing can be said for Mike. When you look at his art online, hopefully I'll get to see his art in person someday. He just has the world class ability to capture the figure because he has put the time and the effort and the energy, and I think is willing and generous to give back. And I think that's something we talked about with Jared Brady, about how when you give back, you start to get more for your art. So that was something that encouraged me from Mike's episode.
Yeah, that's awesome.
How about you, Mark? You got another one on the list, or do you have anything to say about Mike?
I was going to say it was super great. Everything that David said, I received it personally. So it was just really, really great. Super grateful for just everything that he gave us in that episode. I feel like it seems like once an episode, we just have one of those wow moments where you just go, man, they were willing to share that, or man, they told us that, or, just sharing. So, and him and I just really connected over Nikolai Fetchin, and kind of, I thank you, David, for just riding along, because it was so fun to just nerd out with him about that for a second. So thanks, Mike. The second one that I picked was Drew Shetler. And Drew Shetler was a returning guest that we had from last year. He was one of our 20 in 2020. He was super great to talk to that first time. He gave us this great little monologue about how the physical things that God has created are meant to be reflections of and pictures of him. And he came back and with that same energy. I don't know, man, put that guy, give him a TED Talk, give him his own TED Talk, because he just comes in and he just brings that energy. So he talked about two things that really stuck out to me. One was how your personal voice or your taste can narrow down the group of people who you are meant to minister to. How by following that leading that the Lord has put in your heart to create art in a specific way, it can actually kind of show you who it is that the Lord would have you minister to, or open up an audience for you to share the gospel with, or just the love of God. So that was really encouraging to me from him, and it answered a question. I try to ask that to as many people as I can, about taste and preference, because everyone has a little bit of a different different spin on it. So to hear him talk about that was really, really helpful. And then the second thing that he talked about was studying the masters. Specifically, he was talking about film and his favorite filmmakers. But he talked about this thing called, that he kind of related it to an 80-20 ratio, where by doing things 80% mainstream and then sprinkling in 20% of you kind of trying something, or creativity or experimentation, you can really get your art in front of people and it still be your art. It still be, the thing that you want to do. So those were the two things that really stuck out to me from his interview. David, did you have anything that stuck out?
I just need the Drake meme where it's like this and it's Tim Tebow, and then it's like this and it's Drew Shetler, who we need speaking to us motivationally at these conferences. Tim Tebow. No offense, Tim. I love you to death, and I think you're doing great things. But that's the best comparison I could think of, is let's get Drew up there in front of all these people, telling him.
Yeah. Oh man.
But yeah, everything you said, I could just copy paste it. I just appreciate Drew's desire and goals as a filmmaker, and I appreciate how faithful he is right now, because if you go to his page, he's not making short films every week. He's he's supporting his family by using his videography skills to make videos for other people, weddings and graduations, things like that. And so I appreciate that about him because he's doing what he has to, but then every year he usually has a finished film for us, like a full length film.
Hmm.
And that means that he's working on his personal work and he's also using his skills to provide. And that's a great example for all artists, I think, no matter what your talent or your ability is. So,
Yeah.
um, I'm going to go to my second favorite episode, or the second episode that I liked from the year, and that was our new friend Armand Serrano in episode 107. Armand is a viz dev artist right now, and he has done it all though. He's done the hand drawn, he's done the Hanna-Barbera. You got to listen to his story about coming from the Philippines to the United States, about his testimony. I need to say the two things I appreciate, but I appreciate the entire conversation. In
Yeah.
fact, someone commented on YouTube the other day on this episode, Mark, just a couple days ago, and said the last 10 minutes are excellent or something like
Mm.
that. And it really is. If you watch the whole episode, don't just watch the last 10 minutes, but especially when you get to the last 10 minutes, Mark just kind of says, thanks for, being you. And Armand just kind of shares this personal story. And it was really cool to see him open up like that. And he just fit us into his schedule. He hopped off one meeting, came to us, and was so generous, and then hopped into another meeting right after us. And so, yeah, episode 107, Armand Serrano. I don't know if you can remember anything from that episode, Mark. Like when he talked about like Holy Week. Do you remember him talking about
Hmm.
how, I don't know if you remember anything specific about Holy Week or what stood out to you from that?
Yeah, he just talked about how in the Philippines everything would shut down and they would just play these religious epic films like Ten Commandments and I think like Samson Delilah, all these
Ben-Hur
old, or yeah, Ben-Hur, all these old movies, and they would just play these like biblical epics. And so
in the movie theater.
right. That was because the whole city was shut down. So he would just go and watch these. And that was kind of that made his taste. And you can see it in his, especially his like painted word book that he put out that I highly recommend you buy. It's just epic. It's everything is an epic. You see Moses standing with like Aaron and it's literally, it feels like you're watching a biblical epic. So you can see how that really made his taste. And then the conversation that he had with us about the pile of cash, which you can go back and listen to, super fun. And it's always fun to just riff with people and see kind of what's rattling around in the back of their brain, especially with someone like him who's just so talented. So yeah, that was an amazing like dream come true to get to talk to that guy. He's a legend.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about that episode is email your heroes, because
Yeah.
it was like 8 months and
Mhm.
then he replied to us. And so the opportunity to talk to him was something we do not take for granted. And hopefully we can connect with him again. He replies to me on Instagram sometimes when I
Mhm.
reply to him. So he at least knows who we are. So that's pretty
Right.
cool.
Yeah, and it wasn't 8 months out of like, oh, I hate you guys. He was
No,
just like,
no.
hey man, I've been busy this year. But like, to me, the 8 months was almost the more impressive part. Like the fact that he was like faithful to go back and empty out his inbox and like say yes to an email that like, he could have very easily just been like, delete. It's been 8 months. They
Yeah.
don't care. So yeah, that was a great time.
All right, Mark, tell me your third, not third in ranking, but third
Right.
episode that you picked.
Yeah, so the last one that I picked was Dan Schultz, which is out now. Man, that one was so fun. He gave us a studio tour. There's so many things I could say from that one, but I'll just kind of keep it brief. He talked about a specific story about how a trip to a gallery opened up like it kind of showed him the entire picture of, and he had only seen this thread. He looked back and he realized, oh, there's been this thread running through my entire body of work that has led up to this style, that seeing this one thing just unlocked for him. And that's why I say this a lot to students that I work with, or to just anyone who I can talk to who's kind of frustrated in learning or anything. But it really does for me. I've learned, I always say I'm a very stubborn learner, I think, because it takes me hearing things usually 5 times, 5 different ways from 5 different sources before it really sinks in, before I really go, yeah, that is something that I need to apply. And some of that can be healthy because you want to be looking for overlapping information, especially in a field like art where there's so many varying opinions. You want to be looking for, okay, who's okay, they all say drawing from life is important. That's probably actually important. But it's so cool to hear that fifth moment, that moment for Dan when he went, I get it. I get it, so I always love hearing, the third and fourth times, usually you're just frustrated. It's like, oh, I can't believe someone told me that again. But that fifth time when everything clicks I always love hearing those stories from people. I love being that person for someone who can be their fifth time hearing it. It's a rare opportunity. So that was what was really stood out for me from Dan. And then it just really was fun for him to give us a tour of his studio.
Yeah, I was gonna say we didn't say this during the episode, but I thought about it later. It's kind of like an art mullet because it's art in the front and business or business in the front and art in the back.
Yeah.
I wanted to try and figure out how to do like business in the front, arty in the back, but
Yeah.
I don't want Dan to be insulted by us calling his studio the artist version of a mullet. So Dan, if you listen to this, this is not a personal attack on you, your sense of style. I think you're a wonderful person and you're not a redneck, but it is pretty. I think it's ingenious, honestly. Like I think if other artists like, I know not everybody's a business person, but if you need to start out that way, like either, just pay this small percentage a month to rent this space and make it your studio. So you're getting work done too. It is cool to watch, like watch it on YouTube because he gives us a little 360 tour with his camera.
Mhm.
And it's a great idea. I've never seen it before. I'm sure other artists are doing it, but not like he's doing it. And he's just someone to look up to in that respect. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
all right,
What's
Mark.
your
So,
what's
oh,
your last one?
yeah, my last one would be Brian Nair, episode 103, talked about portrait painting. It was just really cool to meet your art program's golden child. Like everyone you talk to from your circles always says Brian Nair, Brian Nair, Brian Nair. And he wanted to like call me on the phone as soon as I emailed him. Like
Mm.
he was so responsive. And I think that what he learned from Joe Bowler about mentoring really informs the way that he treats other artists and other creatives and other people in his field. And I know that all of the things that have stood out to me have been relational things, and all the things that stood out to you have been art things, but that's just who we are. That's just kind of a reflection of our personalities and what we look for in people. But the other thing I did appreciate about him was just uh like he seems to be very matter of fact. Like I create because I can and because I have like worked hard at it.
Mhm.
Um and it doesn't seem to be a chore for him. Like sometimes I think people pressure themselves into creating because they're creative. And
Mhm.
he doesn't seem to be pressured by it. He's just like, this is how many portraits I can turn out a year. This is how many I have to do to support my family. And each one is better than the last because he's always trying to make it better. He's always working at it. He's always pursuing excellence, which
Mhm.
is kind of the whole goal of our brand that we started 3 years ago when we wanted to start creating this community of people that we both look up to and work with.
Mhm.
And Brian is a perfect example of someone like that. And I hope that, someday in the future we can drive up to where he's only a couple hours from us. So maybe we can
Mhm.
drive up and buy him lunch or something and just tell him thanks again. And I don't know, Mark, if you remember what he said about, he kind of has a similar story that Dan tells about getting to paint with someone like, and I don't know if you remember him like saying he looked around and no one else cared about this amazing artist on the
Yeah.
screen. I don't know if you've ever had a moment like that or if that moment kind of sticks out in your mind or
Uh, Yeah, I mean, there was one moment like that for me, and not I don't want to say like no one else cared, but I just was fortunate enough to know who it was. And do you mind if I tell that story real
yeah,
quick?
go for it.
Okay. So I was in class one day, and this guy named John Taylor walks in, and I hear the teacher agree, "Oh, hey, John Taylor, good to see you." And I went and I looked and I said, "That's John Taylor." And my friend goes, "Who's that?" And I said, "The guy who designed the Ark Encounter." Also, like the guy who my school put in their update, like their alumni update, as like, this dude paints dinosaurs for a living. And as a teenager reading, this dude paints dinosaurs for a living and went to our school, you're like, well, I want to do that. That's, like, if that's a thing that people do. And so, and he had been, I still remember there was this excerpt in there, and it said, because John came to college late, and I didn't realize that in the thing. I just thought that he was like super good, but he was super good. But his teacher told him at the time, do not compare yourself to your classmates, compare yourself to the masters, and that is how you will really get ahead. And I was like, that is me. I will do that. I will take that as a personal, just recommendation, and no, I'm not John. I'm not, that was not meant for advice for me. I should have probably just been like, all right, let's try to like be as good as the best person in the class. But I was like, no, this is a personal calling for me now. And so, when he walked in, I was like, that's John Taylor. That's the dude who I read about in the update, and just no one else, either they didn't have parents who were alumni or something, or they just weren't aware. But I was like, that's him. And that's kind of that Joe Bowler moment for me. Not as probably significant, maybe, who knows, as significant to my career as Brian's was, where he met his mentor. John Taylor has been a great mentor to me and has taught me a lot. But
I was going to say you are similar in that respect, in that you pursued John and you've
oh
reached
yeah.
out to him and you've stayed in touch, and he has been able to invest in you. And I think that that's something that we should probably talk about. I think that after a couple of years of this, we're going to have the ability to share that information with up and coming artists about
Mhm.
how to pursue mentorship, because there's a way to go about it and there's a way not to go about it. And there's a little bit of luck involved, and there's a lot of patience,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of determination involved too. And so, but yeah, I was going to say that John Taylor idea, you have that same experience with him where you did pursue a relationship with him respectfully, and he was able to invest in you and possibly still in the future.
Yeah. And I'll say this, like, if you're the type of person who isn't pursuing mentorship right now, you are probably not the type of person that's going to do it wrong if you tried.
Right.
Like a lot of times, the people who do it wrong are the people who are doing it and are doing it wrong. But if you're like, oh, I just don't know if I could ever do that, you're probably not going to come off,
You're probably going to be
you're
just fine.
right.
When you
Exactly.
start,
Yeah.
you're going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been fun. Email your heroes. Yeah, and just literally just tell them, man, I love your stuff. Mention something specific that you love, that genuinely you love. And that's the thing, like, don't reach out to the people who you think you can get in contact with but you don't really like their work. Reach out to your heroes, and because you will actually have something genuine to say, man, this piece, I love it. Like this story that you worked on, this movie, this something, man, it was good, and your art from it was amazing. So, and you'll be able to say that from a genuine place, not oh, I think maybe this guy.
Hey guys, wanted to take a quick moment and tell you about the amazing resources from our friends Jean and Jocelyn over at Dutch Art Box. The Dutch Art Box is a global online platform that promotes artists and high quality art related products and services. Each week, a new featured artist is interviewed, and their artwork and story is published on their website, social media, and through a newsletter. So, the Dutch Art Box's mission is to help you become the artist you are meant to be, learning new creative skills and using the right tools for the job. Sign up for their monthly newsletter if you want to be kept informed about the latest online art competitions, the best online art courses, workshops, and high quality art products. So go over to the website, DutchArtBox.com, and sign up for the newsletter today. That is just a brief highlight of the 13 or 14 interviews that we've done in 2021. We didn't even talk about interviews from 2020. We didn't even recap the last half of 2020 at one point, Mark. Like we just keep recapping the first half of our year, and then we get to the end of the year and we're like, well, we made it, let's worry about next year. So we have to figure out how we're going to do that going forward. But we wanted to thank some people, and then we're going to let you know what's coming up. We're going to let you know where to follow us. And then if you want to stick around, we're going to have some fun at the end. A little throwback to Facts, Feelings, and Fun, if those of you have been listening from day one, the OGs. But first of all, Mark, I wanted to thank Leaf Institute.
Mhm.
Now, we've never mentioned Leaf Institute on the podcast before, and you're going to see more of them in the second half of 2021 in correlation with us. But Leaf Institute Greenville.org is the name of their website, and you can just follow them on Instagram at Leaf Institute. They have provided space for us to interview local artists and to sit down with them in person now that the regulations have been lifted. And we are so grateful to Brandon and Michelle, who are the people in charge over at Leaf. It's a really cool art, vocation, and ministry. Like, how do those three things come together? How does my vocation become my ministry? How does my art become my vocation? How does my art vocation become my ministry? Like, it's just kind of like they have all these fellowship programs, they have all these book studies. If you're not local to Greenville, South Carolina, you can still participate in the online book clubs.
Mhm.
I think they do those via Zoom for a very small fee, and then you buy the book. And I think that is something that if you want to develop yourself and you don't have maybe the resources right near you, that's something you could start doing now. So Leaf Institute, if you want to check into that. And like I said, you'll see their building, you'll see the inside of their building, you'll see more from them in the coming months and years. I hope we can partner with them for a long time. And Brandon's been a big encouragement to me already. And so that's the first big thank you we had to say, Mark. The second one is to Sentient Academy. Can you share briefly, maybe remind everybody of the course you took from Sentient, and then maybe other courses and people that we've had on that teach courses?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about Vision X after that.
For sure. Yeah, Sentient Academy is a really great online learning platform for fine art and business and things. They're really doing a lot right now to get art business side of their school kind of going. And part of that is the thing that we'll talk about next. But I was able to take their art business course, and that was really great. It had a lot of interviews with both professional artists and gallery owners, and they were talking about strategies, different things like that. And then the Keith Huang was doing videos in that course about actually thinking like a business person. He talked about having your artist cap and your business cap, and how, if people are talking about art, yeah, feel free to have that artist cap on. But the minute that dollars and cents start getting thrown around, whoop, business cap, and that's literally like the very scratch of the surface of everything. And then he went into supply and demand and all those. Literally, it was a business, like a basic business course, but everything was related to art and selling and those sort of things. So really cool. I really enjoyed that course. And then I've watched other videos as a part of the package. I think I got like a free, I got to participate in like a free, like Josh Clare. Like I got to watch like
Nice.
a few of his lessons. Oh my goodness, I was like, yes, just give me more. It's so good. So really great content. We've interviewed several artists that teach on Sentient. So like if you heard like Dan Schultz, Mike Malm, Ellie Wilson, if you like heard those interviews and you were like, man, they sound really good. They're like, if you want to learn from them, they're teaching on Sentient Academy. So I really encourage you to go look them up if you like their work or you want to learn
And
more
if I'm
from
not
them.
mistaken, the benefit of Sentient is that do you get critique, or no, maybe that's a different course. I can't
So
remember.
the benefit is that there's different tiers. So
Oh, that's right.
you can pay, and you can pay to take like a course, or you can just pay for an online workshop. So, say you're like, man, I just want to learn from Brian Mark Taylor about this specific part of the process, in painting. If and then you see, oh, he offers a workshop on that. I don't need to pay for his entire landscape painting course if I just want to learn, how to plein air do it. Like if I just want to see him do a plein air demo. So that's the advantage there. You can sign up for different tiers, and then there's a really great community on Sentient where you can put up work that you're doing, or you can post your progress, and the teachers, these top level professional artists are like interacting with you, giving you feedback, encouragement, those sort of things. And so that's a real advantage there. And whoever your instructor is that you're taking the course from, you have access to ask them questions and those sort of things, and they're really responsive, really great people. So
Nice. Well, the reason we're mentioning Sentient specifically is because Keith and Brian Mark Taylor invited Mark and I, as Destination Arte Creative Community Podcast hosts, to be live event hosts for Vision X Live, and I know I've just said the word hosts and live and podcast a bunch of times, but Vision X Live is an online conference, which if you're listening the weekend of July 16th, 17th, or 18th, if you're listening to this podcast, we are in the conference as you're listening, and we are helping Brian and Keith by hosting Zoom calls, helping artists do their demonstrations, helping them share their screens, helping answer questions, helping moderate. Really great opportunity for us to practice the skills we've been learning as interviewers, and then connect with these artists and connect with people who want to be artists and start to grow this community even more. And if you did not get a chance to attend Vision X Live this year, I would definitely bookmark the website visionxlive.com and be watching for next year, because I just think it's something that's going to be, in the long run, especially as hard as Keith and Brian work on things, it's going to be sustainable. They've got a sustainable model already, and the people they're involving are not just their friends,
right.
they just got a bunch of their friends together to do a conference. They went after the best of the best, and the best of the best are going to be there. And I mean, I don't want to start listing names because I'm going to leave people off, but I am going to say that Jared Brady, Stephanie Page Thompson, Ellie Wilson, Dan Shultz, and Mike Malm, 5 people that we had the chance to interview, will be there this year. They're presenting this year. So that's really cool for us. And yeah,
and we're even going to get to moderate some of their sessions. So it'll be like a little reunion inside of Vision X itself.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So, like I said, if you're listening during the weekend that this episode releases, we are at the conference. If you're listening after that, the conference has already happened, and I don't want you to feel like you're missing out, but you really should feel like you're missing out because you should have been there. And we're really excited to be involved with that. We literally today, as we're recording this, got off a call where we were just looking at the schedule with Keith and Carl, another host, and I just went out and mowed my yard with all the fervor of 10,000 horses because I was just like, this is going to be so amazing, you know, and I'm like riding my mower around thinking like of all the cool things that are going to happen. So anyways, big thank you to Sentient Academy and Vision X for that opportunity this summer.
Yeah. And if you're interested in what Vision X is, or, you know, several people have said, you know, what is it? Still not quite sure, but done some digging. I think the best description I've heard of it is from Brian Mark Taylor. And he said, it's a TED conference for artists. Like, it's all of the high level, big thinking concepts that you want to, what that you're thinking about as an artist, but that you're like, man, I wish someone, you know, would talk about these. It's all of those concepts plus demos, like all the things that you're getting at these other conferences, like, demo and doing this, and they're, you know, they're doing the nitty gritty of teaching the, you know, the mixing of the paint and the strokes and everything. You're getting that plus the TED aspect of it, where it's these world-renowned artists talking about these high-level art concepts that are really game-changing, really game-changing.
All right, so coming up the rest of this summer, we've got Ethan Hansen's coming back on. He came on the podcast last summer and talked about church media. This year, he's coming back on to talk about visual effects and a special project he was involved in. Mark, what
that episode is a blast. That episode is a blast. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's going to be great. Another returning guest is Scott Fuller. Talked to us for an hour.
Yes.
Like the guy
wouldn't let us off the phone.
Yeah, he said, ask me more questions. Like, it was great. We love Scott. And he shares some crazy stuff. Like, and by crazy, I don't mean like, that's insane, but just like things that you'd never get to hear from an artist just by looking at their design on Instagram or going and hearing them give their, you know, like when he was on with us first, he shared kind of like a cool story from his art career, and you know, but he talked about taking risks, talks about excellence, talks about his hobby and why it's important to him, like his main hobby, and why it fuels his graphic design. And then Mark, one more that I wanted to just like name drop, and then we've got a couple that we can't say yet but are coming soon. Emma Hartman is a new person that's coming on the podcast, and she is going to talk about contemporary art. So that's going to be a little bit of a different conversation than we normally have, but I think it's going to be good. It's going to stretch us a little bit, get us out of our comfort zone, maybe get our listeners out of their comfort zone, and really just give us an opportunity to just be considerate and just think through some things we normally wouldn't. So those are all coming up. I'm excited about those. Like I said, we've got 2 more that I can't tell you about yet. But you'll hear about them eventually. They're going to be real fun. So, okay. So for the next 10 minutes, now that we got all that out of the way, we had to, oh man, what a bummer that was to listen to and to talk about. So now for the next 10 minutes, we're going to play a game. Mark, you came up with this game. I did not come up with this game because I was so busy this week trying to do all the things that I had to do, and I was spending my time elsewhere. But for those listening, we used to do facts, feelings, and fun. We had 3 segments on the podcast before we realized 3 segments was a lot for 2 people who had no clue what they were talking about. And so
to do every week,
we did this every week for 52 weeks. We did 3 different segments. We did like a factual thing. We did like a thing we had emotions and thoughts about. And then we did like a fun where we would like write stories. So speaking of writing stories, Mark has developed this game for us. I think he stole it from the Big Picture or from somebody like that. And I'll let you kind of tell us, Mark, just kind of lay the ground rules for me so I know whether or not I'm going to break them.
How dare you accuse me of stealing this?
Steal like an artist.
Yeah. So I have a twist for you, David, maybe as we go, because I don't know that this will take the whole 10 minutes. So I wanted to do a few different things here. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend like we are a director or a producer of a project, and we are telling a story. So we're telling a story, and we have to assemble our writing team. So it's me or it's David, plus we get to draft 3 writers, and to be on our writing team. And David, I thought what we could do is we could maybe draft, maybe like we could, if depending on how long it goes, maybe we'll do it in a different episode. But like we could pick a genre, and then we could draft, draft it for that genre, or we could just draft in general. What do you think? I thought the genre
I'm not
might
prepared.
narrow it down.
I'm not prepared for genre.
You're just
I
prepared for
guess I
regular?
am, but
I'm not prepared. I came up with this game and I have 1 name written down.
Oh no. Okay. Well,
But
I have 4 names written down. So if you need one of mine,
I do not need your scrappy leftovers. Don't give me that.
Let's hold off on the genre thing just because it's going to cramp my style. And you know what? You can say it's from a certain genre, and I'll just ignore you. So,
okay.
That's my opinion. That's my opinion right now as we're getting ready to play this game. Well, are we gonna flip a coin? How are we gonna decide who goes first?
You're gonna end up with Dr. Seuss writing a horror story if you don't.
Oh, I see. A genre for what we're going to write.
Right.
So we don't have to pick someone from that genre.
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, who do you want helping you write your historical drama?
Give me a genre then. Are we doing a random.org thing for the genre? What are we doing?
No, we're not doing random. I mean, it's gonna come out of my head.
Okay. I'm ready.
Let's do a like a fable. It has animals in it.
A fable. Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that. I think so. I'm going to go to flip a coin on my phone. Preparing to flip.
Why? What do you?
Just see who goes first. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna press flip, and you call it in the air, heads or tails. Okay.
Okay.
It's flipping.
Heads.
You waited till it showed up.
All
right.
Okay, fine.
You go first. Is this a snake draft where you go first, I go second and third, you go fourth and fifth?
Okay, fine.
And I go sixth. Is that how this works?
Yeah. Wait. Do I get 3? As long as we both get 3. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, do you pick first every time, each round? Because there's 3 rounds. Or do you pick first and then second and then first?
And then, yeah, right.
Okay.
I do that. Okay.
All right, you go first. Draft your first writer for we're writing a fable with animals in it. All right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. With the first pick in the fable draft for story writers, I am going to select Joe Ramft, legendary Pixar story man, worked on such films as Bug's Life. Maybe you've heard of it. Great tale about animals. He worked on Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., all of the great Pixar films, leading up until he even worked on Cars, and passed away during the making of Cars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so legend.
The film is dedicated to him.
Literally a legendary story man. So you know how good the Pixar people are writing stories, especially that original crew, that kind of core brain trust. They said Joe Ramft is the greatest story man to have ever lived. So with the first pick in the Fable draft, I will take the greatest story man to have ever lived.
Nice.
Joe Ramft.
Okay, I can see that was a great pick. With my first pick in the Fable story draft, I'm going to pick Stephen Pastis because he knows how to write stories that have animals in them that are fabulistic. He's the creator of Pearls Before Swine. He also has another book series out for kids, I think called Terrible Timmy or something like that. I haven't read that one.
I think that got made into a movie. Even.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it was on Netflix or Disney Plus, one of the two. I have a bunch of his comic collections on my shelf. I have a T-shirt with his characters on it. I follow him on Twitter. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I absolutely think that he is the gold standard for serial comic strips in the 2000s, 2010s, because he just executes so well. And he's an inspiration to me because when you read his first strips, he cannot draw, but the story is there and it's so strong that as he learned to draw, the story the drawing was just catching up to the story and continually because the story was just better and better every day. So Stephen Pastis, first pick.
Man, that is great. as far as assembling a team of writers, like his perspective in the room is just going to be great. Like you're going to get some really great punchlines. You're going to get some great storylines, some off the wall ideas, which is what you need in a, you need someone who's going to bring something fresh. So freshest pick so far goes to. Okay.
Do I get the first pick of round 2 here?
You do. It's a snake draft.
All right. Just gonna go for it. I'm gonna say Conan O'Brien because he is a legendary writer's room writer.
Okay.
He wrote for SNL. He wrote for The Simpsons. I think he even guest wrote for Colbert with the late night show or whatever that show that Colbert and all them were on. He's a great idea guy. He just has these ideas that you're like, and I think seeing him and Pastis argue would be worth the resulting story that came out of it, because
I was going to say that might be a lot of ego in one room so far for you.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of ego, so they're gonna have to make room for me. So as the head of the writing team, let's just all put our egos aside. And I've got Stephen Pastis and now Conan O'Brien in the room with me. I hope you didn't have to cross any names off your list there, but
no, I'm doing just fine.
Who you got for pick number 4? Top that one.
For pick number 4, to write a story about animals, I will take the legendary James Herriot because he knows animals better than anyone.
He knows them inside and out.
Yes, literally. So
James Herriot played a big role in my life growing up because of the books All Things Bright and Beautiful, All Creatures Great and Small, All Things Wise and Wonderful. What do you remember specifically about James Herriot that makes you decide that he's on your team?
So All Creatures Great and Small was a great book. Really, really good. I loved it. And the way that he captures characters, he is a great, I'll say this. I would love him because he would be able to bring the idea of individual moments that would stand out in the audience's mind. He'd be able to give me a great just 10-minute scene that could really be rewatchable or that could really stand out and be remembered. But he could also show how that would weave into the overall narrative. He could create characters that you would be interested in seeing go throughout, watch them grow, watch them change, or just watch them be the same because they're just delightful. So, and then obviously his expertise in animals would be invaluable because he would be able,
for those listening, he's a vet. He's a veterinarian.
Right. Yeah. So Mr. Joe Ramft could be going off on something crazy and James could be like, whoa, Joe, we just need to come back down to earth here because that's not really how a cow moves. So he would bring a valid he would make sure we stayed grounded. Let's just put it that way.
I like it. Okay. All right. You got 2 dead guys.
Yep, I do.
Who's your third? You get the first pick of the 3rd round. Final pick.
They're legends. Okay. This will complete my writer's room. I'm bringing in Christopher Nolan because I need someone who is going to contrast these men and is going to bring structure. I have 2 guys who are great at ideas, but I need someone who can actually help James Herriot fit them together and weave them together into something surprising. Like imagine a story about animals that has Christopher Nolan somewhere in it. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Alice in Wonderland meets Inception.
Right. Which I think would be great.
Yeah, I think I would watch that movie tomorrow.
Right, exactly. Like I seriously, like to someone tells me, I'd be like, oh, you mean that James Bond and the Disney's Robin Hood are like having a crossover event? Sure thing, I'm in. Where's the theater? So with my final pick, I need some structure. I need a little bit of story structure and know-how of how the timeline works. So I'm taking Chris Nolan.
Well, now I'm in a quandary because I was going to ask you if we were sticking pretty conservative, but you've drafted James Nolan or Christopher Nolan. So
wait, conservative?
Like I thought, like
you picked Conan O'Brien.
It's one of the greatest writers' room guys like ever. Because I'm about to pick the best writers' room guy ever.
Well, okay, what makes you say conservative?
Well, I just didn't know if I need to be picking like the person who wrote Adventures in Odyssey, or if I needed to be picking A.A. Milne. Like, do I need to stick with like stuff that we've done brackets about? Like, because that's kind of the genre you're in, except for Christopher Nolan. So the fact you've picked him gives me the freedom to make this choice, I think.
Right, because I'm just picking writers that I like because this is just my taste. This is
Okay.
like everyone that I have picked, I like their content, their product. I have other people that I could pick, but I didn't because guess what? I like these guys. So
All right.
and
Well, then
all right, you go
you're
for
going to
fine.
laugh at me. You're going to laugh. But the third pick and the final pick for my team, I got Pastis, I got Conan O'Brien. I'm picking Donald Glover because he's the greatest comedy writer of all time. And he's one of the greatest television writers of all time. And so I'm putting him in the room with Stephen Pastis and Conan O'Brien, and I'm saying it has to be about animals, and there has to be some sort of moral or nihilistic, some sort of fable that comes out of this. And I'm just going to turn them loose. And the egos are just going to, the walls are just going to explode.
Our writers are going to come up with very different stories.
Yes, they're going to be very different stories. I mean, honestly, like Donald had a YouTube troupe forever, and then he was a writer for 30 Rock. And 30 Rock is one of the smartest comedies from a perspective of what sitcoms were doing at that time. Like it was really capturing what sitcoms used to do and what they could do in the same motion. Like with the same camera shot, it would do the same. It would do what they used to do and what they could do, and it was incredible. And he wrote for that a lot. And then he also wrote Atlanta, and he has written a lot of music, which is neither here nor there. But he's a prolific writer, and that's why I'm picking him, because I think he would have contrasting ideas and opinions to both Stephen and Conan. And I think the three combinations of experiences and ideas would be something the world has never seen before.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing to think about is what each of these men brings with them. So like one of mine brings a filmmaking background and a high class intelligence or something like that. You know, the other one of my guys brings with him real world knowledge of animals. The third guy brings with him the knowledge of working on some of the greatest films and of working with some of the greatest people. And that's what I think your team has the strength of, maybe minus Pastis, is having not only like whose writers' rooms have those guys been in, because they're bringing that with them. So I think that's a real strength of your team.
And Pastis, and all three of them know how to turn something out at a deadline. Like they would get it done. You know what I mean? Because even Pastis knows, like, I've got 6 months of comics to write in the next 3 weeks, and I got to write them. So.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point.
All right. Well, maybe we'll put up an Instagram poll or something. We'll ask our followers if they listen to the end of the episode who won the writer's draft. And we'll find out. We'll ask and see. We'll put it up there for the people to decide. If you have listened this far, thank you so much. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube for fewer episodes like this one and more episodes like what we talked about at the beginning with the amazing people that we interview and get to talk to. Leave us a comment or review. As I mentioned, someone commented, I don't have their name in front of me, but they commented on the Armand Serrano podcast episode on YouTube, and they said, this whole episode was a blast to listen to. It was really fun. And the last 10 minutes are excellent. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for letting us know that you enjoy hearing what we have to say, and also for enjoying mostly what our guests have to say, because thankfully they're the ones doing most of the talking. So, but yeah, share this podcast with a friend that you think might enjoy hearing from these amazing artists that we get to talk to on a regular basis. And we would really appreciate that.
So, and you can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, Destination Arete, Arete. And on there, you can find, we put up stuff about like upcoming community events, you know, stuff about Vision X Live or the other people who we're collaborating with. And we'll put up quotes from the episodes, and we'll also just let you know. That's a great place, you know, if you don't check your Apple Podcasts, you know, thing every day, you know, but maybe you do check Instagram more regularly. We put up there when new episodes are out, so that you remember, oh yeah, it's this Friday, you know, that's when this episode's coming out. So that's a great way to connect with us.
All right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks with another interview. Talk to you then.